Hello, my name is Victoria Johnson. For the visual riffing project, I looked through the list of photographers and decided to select Annie Leibovitz. The reason I chose her is because of her style. Her style is dramatic, creative, elegant, and sophisticated with a mix of fun. Throughout this project, I hope to show the photographic style, skill, and critical analysis of her works. First, I am going to spend time talking about Annie Leibovitz and her history. Over the course of Annie's photographic journey, she became known as one of the most famous portrait photographers of her time and beyond. Annie Leibovitz, originally named Anna Lou Leibovitz, was born on October 2, 1949 in Waterbury, Connecticut. She was a part of a military family. Her father was a lieutenant during the Vietnam War. This was when she enrolled in San Francisco Art Institute in 1971 to become a painter. However, after taking just one photography class, she knew that that is what she wanted to do. She was given her first real assignment to photograph John Lennon for Rolling Stone magazine. Later, she became the publication's chief photographer. By this time, she has photographed many famous individuals such as John Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, Demi Moore, and Joan Armstrong. In the 80s, she put together 60 prints of her best work, and that would tour Europe and also the United States. Around the time that she joined Vanity Fair was when her book was released, called Annie Leibovitz Photographs, which ended up being a bestseller. It was a big year for Annie in 1991, where she became the first woman and second living photographer to have her own exhibit in the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. Later on, in 2000, she was honored to be a part of the first group of Americans to be considered a Library of Congress living legend. As well as her many honors and achievements, she also had the privilege of photographing Queen Elizabeth II in 2007 to document her first time in America in over 16 years. She was the first American to photograph Queen Elizabeth professionally. Her personal project, Pilgrimage, which included landscapes, living spaces, and sole objects, but no people. The Smithsonian Museum in 2012 acquired 64 works for their permanent collection. This is a picture of Annie Leibovitz with her camera. This was photographed in her later years, as you can tell because she looks like she has some gray hair. Here are the titles of her most famous works organized by year. Here are a few more. From the previous list, I picked just a few of her most famous works. The first one on the left is the Nixon photograph. The one next to it is her Vanity Fair photograph. Below those are Keith Haring and Queen Elizabeth II. The first one here is of Meryl Streep, followed by her photograph that was used in Les Miserables movie, and underneath those are Arnold Schwarzenegger and Charles Lee Theron. Now I'm going to be talking about the photo analysis part of my project. Now that we know the history of the photographer I chose, it is time to dive deep into Lester's elements and perspectives. For my first photograph, I chose the Meryl Streep shot Anne took in 1981. In the photograph, I see a woman with either a face mask on or paint. Her hair is curly and a golden blonde color. She has lipstick on, and it looks like she has a visible contour on her cheeks. She is wearing a white colored shirt that isn't buttoned up all the way. Her hands are trying to take off the white mask on her face. Compositional elements include that she is looking directly into the camera. The light source must be coming from directly behind the camera because you can see it in her eyes. She is in the middle of the picture with her chin tilted a little downward. Her mouth is open so it appears she is taking a breath in or exhaling. The color of her hair blends in slightly with the yellowish-green background of the picture. Her skin color is tan in comparison to her white face. With her hair blowing, her hands are following that movement by doing an action as well. Meryl Streep is placed closest to the camera, which shows proximity, which also enhances Annie's illusion. A symbolic sign is used because the title of the photograph is called Send in the Clowns. Even though she doesn't totally look like a clown, she has some of the signs of looking like one, with the painted face, the red lips, and the cheekbones. But just looking at the image, you would just think of a woman who has a painted face. An indexial sign seems as it is warm and windy because her shirt is open and her hair is blown. Metonymy, since she is emotionless, it seems as though this could be an eerie or an uneasy situation. Analogical, because viewers could make the assumption that she looks similar to a clown. Memory. It could remind someone of seeing a clown just because her face is painted white. Projection. You could assume that it is hot wherever they are shooting because her shirt is unbuttoned. Selectivity. Since she is the only one in the picture, it is safe to assume that she gets noticed first. Salience. This picture will mean more to someone who is familiar with Meryl Streep because even though she is wearing paint on her face, she is still easily recognizable. The purpose of the work could be to show that Meryl Streep wanted to break out of her shell as a person or an actress. All in all, I would say that this photograph is aesthetically pleasing because it is only focusing on the subject and not so much is going on in the picture otherwise. It makes it easy to understand and follow. The colors all go together nicely. From a personal perspective, which makes this photograph great, is the famous Meryl Streep. Without her presence, I do not think that this work would have been so successful. Compared to her other works, this one is quite plain. Usually her other projects accompanied much more detail and design elements. However, it sends a message that the overall idea could be eerie and dark. When looking at the work done by Annie Leibovitz, Hendenism is demonstrated. She wanted to use someone well known to make the picture great. After this photograph, Meryl Streep became more famous and got more roles for acting. As for Annie, she continued photographing some of the most famous people in the world. For a categorical imperative, it is fitting that Annie Leibovitz took this picture of Meryl Streep because she does portrait photography. Since she practically only takes pictures of famous people, it made an obvious choice to stage the photo the way she did, almost as if it was her responsibility to photograph actors, public figures that would later be successful in life. For the photo riffing portion of the project, I decided to riff the photo I previously analyzed, the one of Meryl Streep, Send in the Clowns. This is my riff photo of Annie Leibovitz's work, Send in the Clowns. I decided to use my mom for the riff photo because she is around the same age as Meryl Streep was when this photo was taken, and she also has blonde hair. In order to make this photo happen, I had to have my mom paint her face white and put red lipstick on and contour her cheeks red, which she agreed to do. We got into my bathroom. Because of the walls were painted pretty close to the background in the photograph, I had to sit in the tub while she sat on the opposite side, and I had to bring in a spotlight to light up the bathroom. I even brought a fan in there as well, but it did not look like it did much of anything. It took multiple tries to get the hand position right. That part was hard to do because of how slippery the white paint was. When looking at both pictures side by side, one will notice that the inventory list is the same in both photographs. However, the compositional elements are slightly different. In my photo, the lighting is more yellowish than white in Annie's photo. Also, in her photo, the viewer sees more of a green, darker hue. Just as in the last picture, my mom is tan in comparison to her white painted face, and her hair matches the background. Her hands are creating a movement in the frame as well. My mom was placed evenly in the front of the frame, which creates proximity. The symbolic sign is still carried out in this picture because of the white painted face, dark lips, and red cheeks to mimic the clown theme. Even though I couldn't get the air to blow that much, this image still shows an indexial sign because it looks warm in the place the photo was taken because of her shirt being open. One of the things that is different between the photos is that my photo will not offer the viewer salience because they will have no idea who the person is. Therefore, it wouldn't resonate as much as Annie's picture that had Meryl Streep in it. Like the other picture, I would say this picture is aesthetically pleasing to look at because it is well lit, the subject is the main focus, and it makes the viewer question the context. However, all of the previous perspectives would not fit for my photograph like they did for the previous one that Annie took, because hers were all centered around either the Meryl Streep being noticeable because she was famous or that Annie was a successful portrait photographer. Throughout this project, I got to have a lot of fun learning about the famous Annie Leibovitz and her history along with her photographs. Riffing pictures is a lot more difficult than I thought, but I was able to mimic the photo while keeping Lester's 9 elements and critical perspectives in mind. Annie Leibovitz is an icon in the photography world, and I loved getting the opportunity to learn more about her. And this is my works cited. Thank you.